We all know that trying to listen carefully, take good notes, and really think about an idea during a lecture can often be a bit of a challenge. Making an audio recording of a lecture is a great way to capture exactly what it is the lecturer is saying, leaving you free to take notes without having to worry about missing out on any key concepts or ideas. Having the ability to listen back to a lecture is a great tool to use when revising, and also just when catching up on lecture topics during the semester. If you're a disabled student, you may already be familiar with the idea of recording lectures as a reasonable adjustment to support your studies.
However, because you might record material that is copyright protected, or you may record contributions made by other students or a guest lecturer, or the lecture may contain sensitive material, there are some do's and don'ts that you need to know about.
In order to allow every student to make an audio recording of their lecture that doesn't break any performance or copyright rules, the university has put in place a policy and guidelines for good practice on recording lectures that applies to all students and staff. This clearly sets out the circumstances under which a recording can be made and clearly states the responsibilities of both staff and students to ensure the university meets its obligations under copyright, data protection and equality legislation.
This podcast provides an easy way to make sure that you're all up to speed with the information. Firstly, a couple of key definitions. When the policy talks about a lecture, it means face-to-face formal teaching and learning sessions. It excludes tutorials, seminars, student-led presentations, student-led journal clubs, and other forms of student-led small group teaching.
When the policy talks about lecturers, this means any member of university staff involved in learning and teaching, including visiting, honorary and associate staff. And record refers to any audio recording of lectures made by students and any digital capture of lectures by staff.
So what does the policy allow for you to do? The main point is that any student can make an audio recording of any of their lectures given to them by a teaching member of staff. The recording should be discreet, and the fact that you are making a recording should not intrude anyone else's experience of the lecture. Lecturers are aware that recordings are learning tools, and the policy says that lecturers should allow students to record their lectures unless they have a justifiable reason for not doing so. The kinds of things that could come under justifiable reason are clearly identified as situations where copyright, data protection, and commercial intellectual property rights of others could be infringed, or where the lecture contains sensitive clinical material.
If you want to make a recording of a small group teaching session, you need the express permission of everyone in the group. If you're a disabled student and are unable to make a recording of a small group session, then lecturers and other staff are aware that they must make reasonable adjustments as appropriate to ensure you have equal access to any information discussed.
The ownership of the material of the lecture remains at all times with the lecturer, the university, and any others connected with the content. This ownership does not pass to whoever made the recording. This means that the recording can only be used for your own personal study.
So here's what you cannot do. You cannot make a visual recording of the lecture without the explicit prior consent of the lecturer and anyone else involved in the lecture.
You cannot make a recording in a small group teaching session where there is likely to be lots of individual participation, such as a tutorial or seminar, without the knowledge and express permission of everyone involved.
You cannot reproduce or give your copy of the recording to anyone else except for transcription purposes in connection with your studies. This includes the uploading of your recording to external websites, including social networks. The university takes this very seriously, and any inappropriate use of your recording, including uploading to external websites, will be treated as a disciplinary matter and will be referred to your Dean of School and the Director of Policy, Governance and Legal Affairs.
You cannot keep the recording for longer than the time you need to use it. This means you will have to destroy any recording made after in which the time you've used them. This will normally be at the end of the semester in which the recording took place, and will always be before you leave the university.
And finally, some thoughts on good practice. If you are in an interactive lecture with lots of student participation, you may be asked to temporarily stop your recording if other students don't want their personal contributions to be recorded, so please be sensitive to this.
You have to be there to make the recording. Recording a lecture is not a substitute for turning up. The only exception for this is when the lecturer gives permission for a recording to take place in your absence.
Remember that whilst audio recordings of lectures may be a useful revision aid for some students, it can be very time-consuming to go through them all, so don't use them as the only solution to clarify any issues you might have.
So hopefully that will give you all the information that you need to know. However, if you do still have any doubts at all, please feel free to get in contact with Dr. Lorraine Walsh at the Library and Learning Centre inside the main library.